right. Well, if you were going to be profiled in the New York Times,
I would like to be part of that.
I think you may get.
That's very, very moving.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Well.
All right, you're the questioner, I'm the answer.
That's okay. She's been doing this for a while. If you're going to be profiled in the New York Times, it doesn't get much better than this. Quote, Susan Zirinsky is a legend in the world of television news. There was the time she jumped off a moving train in Augusta, Georgia during Ronald Reagan's first term in order to deliver footage for the CBS Evening News. She was the inspiration for Holly Hunter's high-strung and highly ethical producer in the Oscar-nominated movie Broadcast News. Dan Rather once said she was such a part of the network's firmament that she arrived in a yellow CBS shipping bag straight from the maternity ward. Not bad, right? That was from my colleague John Coblin's piece in January. And Susan, you're now no longer delivering footage for CBS News. You are the president of CBS News.
Oh, make no mistake, I'm delivering footage. I'm overseeing the footage that gets delivered.
You kept the title senior executive producer, if I recall. You had been offered, though, this job to be president of the news division years earlier, and you said no. Why did you say yes this time?
You know, oftentimes when there is an upheaval in an organization, or as I like to refer to Lemony Snicket's book, A Series of Unfortunate Events, there was in front of us a dramatic change at CBS. High-powered people were out. And I always have something in the back of my mind, which is a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. And I felt that when I was approached this time, and I didn't say yes immediately, I had a value-neutral expression on, which is, I call it VNE, which you listen, and then you can react one of two ways. You can think it's great, or you can vomit on the side. So after the person's left the room. But when I was approached, I knew, and I had talked to a lot of colleagues over the last months as things were unraveling. And I realized that I had this unique place at CBS. I started as a desk assistant on Saturdays answering the phone. I virtually have had every job except a formal camera woman's job. And so I thought people feel that I had credibility because I had done their jobs. I knew what it takes. I know the sacrifices men and women make with families and personal issues. And I said, CBS needs a reset. And if I take this on, people are going to trust me. And several colleagues came and said, you have to do this. That was actually before I was offered the job. You know, they said, help us. One correspondent wrote me an email. This was before, and it just had two words, help us. And he's an important correspondent at CBS. So I took it because I thought the company needed a major reset. I knew the assets of the company, the reporters, producers, cameramen, that they're the best of the best. So I wanted to kind of take the organization functionally and spiritually to a better place. And so I said yes.
Yeah. You just used the words crisis, unraveling, the need for a reset. You'd been there your entire career. Were you aware of just how corrosive things had gotten in some parts of the organization, to the point where Charlie was doing what he was doing, where Les was doing what he was doing, where Jeff Fager was making threats?
To be truthful, I was the senior executive producer of 48 Hours. We did specials, whether it's a breaking story like Newtown or Aurora, and I was doing a number of other specials and documentaries for Showtime. And I had a rarefied world where 48 Hours as the base was just this incredible group of people. And so there were rumblings, but it wasn't in my world, and I didn't really know the extent until it unraveled.
Yeah. Now, leaders, of course, set the tone for culture. Everything follows from the examples that they set. We saw where that got the previous regime. Since you've taken over in January, what steps have you taken to set a new tone at the company?
Well, first of all, there are multiple steps. I am an obsessive listener, and because I have relationships with so many people at CBS, my assistant, my calendar can sometimes go from 7:30 to 9:30 at night, and I always ask,
that sounds late for you.
Is there a lunch break? But to go back to the question, because it's really serious, I felt that I needed to listen to hear what really people thought. And then but there's an interesting dynamic. People listen a lot, but they don't act. And I think that over the years, this is what was happening. There were listeners, but no action was taken. No consequences happened. People weren't accountable. The debts of history were coming due. And so we have really put an enormous effort into fortifying real HR people who are listening and making recommendations and acting, really increasing the number of people. And I think that both, the Me Too movement and the issues of unconscious bias, they're not going to go away. Sometimes there's a movement and you achieve a level of success, which I think these movements are, but they're not over, and they're never going to be over. Yeah. And the tectonic plates have shifted, but they're never going to lock and load, and that's okay. I think unconscious bias is a very difficult problem for society and for an organization, on campuses. I think Anita Hill was saying this, on all levels. But I think by acting and listening and meeting with small groups of people, it was a day when something was published and it was about unconscious bias, and I called a group of people in just spontaneously that I knew, and I said, I want to hear what this is. I want to know what it was. And when people went around the table and explained certain issues that had happened to them, it was so unsettling to me. It wasn't my experience. It wasn't people who I had worked with, their experience. So the way to approach these monumental problems is in pockets of conversation and really allowing people, knowing that action would happen. Because if there aren't consequences when things are pointed out, people can be unconsciously biased. But if there are no actions, it means nothing. It's like a child. There have to be consequences for behavior that isn't acceptable.
And there had been consequences at CBS News, and you had to take action. Among the first things you had to do when taking over the news division was filling a lot of open seats. How did you go about the process of recruiting talent and executives? Because I have to believe that it was more than just who was good on air. There was a level of social and emotional consideration that you had to put into these hires as well, given everything that had happened.
Actually, it was a little tougher because there weren't empty spaces. People were in jobs. And I will say there wasn't anybody in a job that wasn't working hard and doing a good job. People weren't in the right places. So in the reset, you really made decisions based on talent, first and foremost, based on a balance of who we are as a country, based on the basic tenets of journalism, which is who are the best reporters. It is gratifying that women and diverse candidates have really, the effort is leveling the playing field, but we're not putting people in because they're diverse. We're putting people in because they're talented, because they are fabulous reporters and breaking stories. And so decisions are made based on the quality of someone's work,
Yeah.
but the balancing is something that you're conscious of.
Well, and as a result of your decisions, it was recently pointed out to me that as a result, all of CBS News' non-ensemble shows are now fronted by women.
Yes, coincidence. No. You know what? Here's, you are looking for the best people, but there is the balance issue. And it's exciting. It's an exciting time. I don't look at this as a fearful time. I look at this as, wow, if you can leave a legacy that changes a culture and changes a mindset. The only thing I'm upset about is that everybody publishes my age and how long I've been at CBS. And I think that's bias.
The consequence of seniority, see.
I had hidden my age because I think the people who are shorter look younger because the oxygen is better at a lower level. So to have my husband come and show me a front page of the New York Times, which had the success of older women, and I looked at that, and I was in the shower, and I thought, shit. Now everyone knew my age.
All right, we'll have a word with Jess about that afterwards. Yeah. One of the reasons I've heard you say you also were prepared to take this job at this moment is because of the climate around the news media right now. And in the wake of labels of fake news, President Trump's attacks against the media, was that a part of the consideration as well? And what do you feel you can actually do to address it?
It was absolutely a part. You can get maligned every day, but as journalists, I am so focused on tuning out the noise. We have a job, and at CBS, we're maybe a little straighter than other people in terms of it's a vocation, it's a calling for us. And quite frankly, I think the most important thing right now is to be reporters. Yes, you point out when something's not truthful. Yes, you hold people accountable when there are actions and reactions. And I think that the mission for CBS, and I think there's a real hunger out there for straight reporting. I mean, I really feel that the balance of the multiple cables and the points of view, we're needed more than ever to take the story and report it and let everybody make their own decisions. And I think it's vital. The next 2 years as journalists are the most important 2 years. It's time for us to reveal America to itself without anything influencing it. We want to go into the states. Who are the voters? What do they want? Borrowing Ronald Reagan's phrase, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? But the hunger for sort of real straight news is desperate. There's an example, and there's always a lot of confusion. There was, Facebook had a fake video of Mark Zuckerberg on, and it had a CBSN, our digital network, banner on it. And we asked that it be taken down because it made it appear that we had been broadcasting this fake video, and they wouldn't take it down. So in this era where there is confusion about what's news, what isn't, what's factual, what isn't, it's the most important job we have is to be out there telling the truth. I mean, Nora O'Donnell, who will take over the CBS Evening News, is just a consummate professional. And as she's talked to people, and she's a reporter's reporter. She picks up the phone. She knows people. She really, we were talking about this. There is this hunger for just tell us what happened. And not just tell us what happened. Why does it matter? Why does it matter to you? This is what the goal is.
Yeah. We're quickly running out of time, but with all due respect to my bosses in the room, there is an old adage that journalists don't necessarily make great managers. You've now made this transition.
Well, if somebody's going to have to judge it.
I'm getting eyes from Rebecca from the corner of the room here. What has that transition been like to you? Because
I totally disagree.
All right, good. Tell me why.
You couldn't be, well, okay, so first of all, let's just be honest. I did keep the title Senior Executive Producer, just in case it doesn't work out. I have a goal. But because I am a broadcast producer, a documentary producer, a hard news producer, a magazine producer, I look at what we do in terms of what makes the best production. And because I know what I see will work or not work, or how to tweak it, how to add more hard news in places, where to take a step back, where can you do an iconic cultural piece. I think that the management of news organizations has to be from the perspective of what does the audience and viewer know. We are in a transitional period. In 2 to 5 years, who knows? We may be a streaming network with linear assets. We have broken down the walls in our newsroom between the digital and the linear. And it is the walls of Jericho have come down. And so when somebody on CBSNews.com finds out at 5:45 that the government has kept secret another child had died in detention a year ago, that became the lead of the evening news. Yeah. So this is a brave new world. And the people that can see that and manage it are the people who have done it.
Right.
And I was a really great phone answerer in the Washington Bureau.
And yet you're also now leading meetings about unconscious bias. And that is a break from your previous remit of responsibilities. What advice?
Not really. I
no?
mean,
Tell me why.
When you run a show,
yeah.
you have to be conscious of this.
Okay.
This is an issue in every walk of life. Did I see myself here, in the first days in my Washington days when I thought I would be a Hollywood film director? No. But it's in every part of our lives. I mean, yes, you want to be conscious in the organizations that you're working in and in the, on the college campuses and everything else, but it's in your own lives. This isn't just a media problem, this is society's problem. Yeah. And so I think by looking at it like that, you can suddenly recognize things in yourself. And I think that recognizing a problem, even unconscious bias and unconscious bias against women, it's the first step in the 12-step program.
Well, Susan Zirinsky has been leading from the camera, from the fishbowl, and now as president of CBS News. Thank you very much for being here, Susan.